Hello everyone, welcome to Geology Concepts YouTube channel. I'm going to discuss with you today isostasy, a very important topic to define the equilibrium between different geological features that we see on the surface of the earth. In this particular video I will going to discuss a brief about isostasy, its discovery, and an important hypothesis or model which was given by Airy. And in the upcoming video I will discuss its another model which is given by Pratt. In the end I will going to discuss a question with you, and I would expect all of you to answer that in the comment section. So please stay till the end and do answer the question. Now isostasy, if we were to define this term, this is iso meaning same and stasy meaning standstill or equilibrium. So everything that is at equilibrium or that is at static condition is in equilibrium or stable condition. As you can see this lady lying on a mattress which is filled with springs. Wherever her body parts are much heavier, the springs are more contracted, while there is less weight. Where there is less weight, they are extended, and once this lady gets off this mattress, all of these will come to a common state, that is the spring will be in minimum compression or extension. This is how our Earth's lithosphere shapes itself, as it has a balance of all the large portions of this lithosphere, and which are thought to be floating on a denser underlying layer which is called as the asthenosphere. So isostasy is that phenomena which gives us an idea about how this equilibrium is being achieved, and how these mountains or oceans or lowland areas, plateaus, valleys, rivers, every such large geological features are in equilibrium with each other and are coexisting in the surface of the earth. So if we try to analyze that what made scientists discover this concept, there are two things that came into the minds of scientists. First is that the one we have discussed just now, that how these large features are coexisting together, because the features are itself not static, they are altogether changing. Mountain changes to plains gets rifted, there are glaciation and interglaciation periods, as you can see in the image here. So whenever there is a glaciation period, it puts a lot of weight on the continental crust, or we can say lithosphere, and due to its elastic nature it tends to flow a little bit, and which is overlying on the thick denser mantle which is liquid. It flows, the mantle flows, and the land subsides. But as soon as this glaciation period gets over, when the ice gets melted or evaporated, the water, it tends to rebound and come to this original position. This is called as geostatic or isostatic rebound. So this was an interesting fact that made scientists curious about how is this happening. Another was a very important expedition which was occurring in 18th or 19th century, in which renowned scientists were on finding out the shape of the earth. So they were calculating or determining the length of a latitude, and when they did this geodetic survey near Andes, a very huge mountain chain, they expected this plumb bob, which they used to have this gravity survey and geodetic surveys, they expected this plumb bob to deflect at a very high angle due to this excess mass of mountain of Andes. But surprisingly, this bob did not deflect as they would have expected. Actual deflection was much lower than that. So this made scientists curious about what must have happened so that this deflection is quite low. The similar kind of thing happened in the same kind of survey near Himalayas in India, when this plumb bob did not deflect as much as they expected. Then the survey started. Then they had came up with this idea that whenever there is an excess mass of mountains lying over a crust or lithosphere, there must have been an equal mass lying beneath in the form of root, which gets sinked into the liquid mantle. This theory came up and it was supported by the concept of Archimedes' principle of buoyancy, in which it says that a wooden block which is floating on water and its height, or the exposed height above the water surface, is dependent basically on the density of the wood and how much is the thickness of that wood. And finally, this concept led to the formation of two important models, which was given by Airy and Pratt. So now I'm going to discuss with you the first one, which is given by Airy and is also thought to be more appropriate for the Earth's lithosphere. It was considered that whenever there is high mountains which are of low density will extend deep into the underlying mantle, and similarly the more denser basaltic oceanic crust will have a anti-root below the oceanic crust. Airy's hypothesis made two assumptions, or made hypothesis based on two things. He proposed that there is no lateral variation of the density of crust. There can be vertical variation in the density but not the lateral. But then how will this compensation occur? If he says that there is no variation of density in the lateral extent, then how will this variation of height above the mean sea level compensate each other? So he proposed that whenever there is a mountain, that is an area which is uplifting above some height of mean sea level, then to compensate that, equal mass has to be rooted into the mantle, which is called as the root of that mountain. And in the case of oceans, where there is a lowland area, there has to be an anti-root above the moho. So this was proposed by Airy, that he said there will be no variation in the lateral density, there will be no lateral variation in density, rather this compensation will be achieved by the variation of thickness of these hypothetical blocks. Now the bigger question here is how deep this root should be to compensate the thickness of this mountain above mean sea level. So this was a very simple determination or derivation based on the Archimedes principle again, that if we are saying that these blocks are in isostatic equilibrium, they must be having a same pressure at same elevation. A very simple concept. So by that idea we define a depth of compensation which is somewhere in the mantle, or we can say it is up to the extent at which the root is sinking into the mantle. So if I say that this is my depth of compensation, I can say that pressure at every point on this line or on this depth of compensation will be same, so as to these blocks have to be in isostatic equilibrium. So I will use this concept. I will take one point here as A, and as I need to calculate the R1, the root, I will take a point B here and equate the pressure at A to that of at B. This will give me my R1 given other parameters. So for that I can easily write down pressure in the form of rho GH, which is a lithostatic pressure at any depth or at any point H. Now in this case, at point A I have a T thickness of crust having density of rho U, so I will write it as T multiplied by rho U. I'm not writing G because it is a constant, it will get cancelled out on both the sides, plus I will have this R1 thickness of mantle density, that is rho S. So I can write it as R1 into rho S. This will be equated to the pressure at B, which is actually total thickness of this crustal block, which is H1 plus T plus the root of R1, and the density is altogether same of continental crust, or I can say rho U. Now I just have to equate these two things and solve to get the desired value of R1. Now if I can say if I just break this down, I can write it as T into rho u plus R1 into rho s will give me T into rho u plus H1 rho u plus R1 rho u. Now this is simply get cancelled out. I can take R1 here. It will be rho s minus rho u is equal to H1 rho u. So after solving this, I will get the root of this mountain block as H1 times rho u over rho s minus rho u, where rho u is the density of crust and rho s is the density of mantle. So this was a very simple derivation of how to get root above root below any mountain or any upland area. Similarly, you can do that for H2. If there is a shorter plateau or mountain of height H2, it will have a shorter R2 or root than R1. So you can simply equate the pressure at point C to that of A or to that of B also, and you can calculate the R2 in that case. You can similarly do that for this thickness R3, which is actually the anti-root, in which there is a D depth of water. It can be an ocean, can be in any lowland area, and you can calculate simply the R3 for that. So I hope I made this thing clear to you. Now in the end, I would like you to do that last derivation for yourself, in which you need to calculate the R3, and given these parameters as 2.8 gram per cc density of crust, 3.3 gram per cc density of mantle, and I have given you an hypothetical depth of this water body as 500 meters, and I need you to calculate R3 in meters or kilometer. Don't forget to mention your answer in the comment section. You can do the derivation. It's very simple. You will come to know about the different roots and anti-roots. You can do that. And yes, this is given by Airy. Now in Pratt, I will give you a brief idea. He did not consider equal density model, rather he considered equal thickness model. So in that model, calculation of roots and anti-roots become irrelevant, rather calculation of density of different blocks becomes important. Do solve this question and mention your answers in the comment section. If you have any query, any suggestions, you can just let us know. You can ask us, we shall revert back to you. I hope I made things clear to you. So share it with your friends, like, subscribe, and keep learning. Thank you.